twitch the hand. There's 3.
I got it. Yeah.
Put
And then he
it down.
gave up.
But no, he didn't give up. I didn't know.
Now this is the story, all about how Florida football got turned upside down, and I'd like to take a minute, just sit right there. I'll tell you all about the coach they call Billy Napier.
And if we can focus on those things and not necessarily what some guy in his basement saying in, rural Central Florida.
In South Louisiana, Cajun raised in the Sun Belt was where he spent most of his days. Cupcake maxing, relaxing out cool, trying hard to recruit at this basketball school when a Southeast man. He wasn't no good. Offered him a job in the neighborhood. He won one big game in the nation, dare say, I'm a believer in Billy Napier. He whistled for recruits, and when the class came near, the boosters said, oh hell, it's quite worse than I feared. Grasping for straws, hope still in the air, then it all got wiped from the coaching of Billy Napier. He pulled up to his office about 7 or 8. The Gators stacking losses at a record pace. That's when reality hit. It was too much to bear, and so ended the legacy of Billy Napier. Billy Napier. Just saying the name automatically puts Florida fans into fight or flight mode. I'd like to think he served as a reminder of what Florida football used to be, long before SEC titles, Urban Meyer, Tim Tebow, hell, before even Steve Spurrier. Football in the state of Florida served as nothing more than club entertainment that hardly took itself seriously. They were everything but the juggernaut program they became decades later. Like Miami and Florida State, your casual fan today has likely mistaken them for a blue blood as they became one of the most successful programs in the land through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. But Billy Boy here gave Florida fans reminiscence of an era of their program they weren't even alive for. To say they were a train wreck through his time would be an insult to the phrase. This era of football is what nearly drove alligators to Australia, because that's normally where everything else that kills you is. Like his clown of an athletic director, Billy was a man of pure hard-headedness. With a skull as thick as Desmond Watson, he spent every game thinking he didn't need any help. He could call the plays and lead the Gators to victory every Saturday on his own. However, more often than not, this parade was misdirected straight to the circus. The low-budget one, which catches on fire every year and is still in business somehow. Despite having more talent than most other coaching disasters, Billy couldn't ever put it together on a consistent basis. One week was a marathon of magic, and then the next was 60 minutes of running into a brick wall. The only thing more nonsensical than watching him call Florida into said brick wall was the seemingly eternal PR cycle that the media, the fans, and especially the administration went on year by year to defend the swamp ass on display. And after all the endless glazing, all it did was give them the worst era of football in 5 decades and set the reputation of their program back to the Stone Age. Looks like the program and Billy's offense have something in common. Before we find out the seemingly eternal ways this era of football went wrong, let's take a moment to balance that out with something that might go right for you every once in a while. Sort of depends on your ability to know ball. I'm of course talking about our sponsor, Prize Picks. Thank goodness we've had the World Cup up until now, because if it weren't for that, us college sports fans would have very little to watch or interact with. But thankfully, it's here. And so is the newest version of Prize Picks, who have gone out of their way to find just about every sport that you can interact with. The possibilities are endless with all the different picks you can make. World Cup, tennis, soccer, hell, you can even put your money on Counter-Strike 2 if you have the guts. What's fun about Prize Picks is that it's extremely convenient. From the lineup I made here on the screen, you can see just how efficient it is in action. You simply choose a projected stat line for any player in particular and build your lineup from there. Whether your picks hit or completely fall apart after 15 minutes, it gives every game a little extra drama. Prize Picks is available in over 40 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Florida. And if you're new, they're offering $50 in lineups when you place your first lineup. All you gotta do is download the app and use the promo code HMA. So what are you waiting for? Join Prize Picks today and win big. Sometimes, of course, you may win, you may lose. Just make sure that above all else you play responsibly. In order to grasp what led to Florida's collapse, we have to uncover where it all began. And from my point of view, that's basically rolling a 10-headed die, because where did it start? Was it Ron Zook, Meyer's fake heart attack, Tebow's departure, Will Muschamp, Jim McElwain, and the Sharks' development? Where do you even begin? For the sake of your time, we'll log the beginning of this era as a result of something that causes many problems in the current year. The shoe. Dan Mullen had been a successful coach for Florida, winning big games, top 10 finishes, New Year's Six Bowl wins. Things seemed to be going well for the Gators as a program. until this very moment here. Marco Wilson threw all the hopes and dreams of Gator Nation somewhere 50 yards down the field in an empty COVID-year Tiger Stadium in the middle of the night. You see, Florida was fighting for a spot in the college football playoffs with Heisman finalist Kyle Trask, elite tight end Kyle Pitts, and one of the most elite offenses in the country. All they had to do was take down a half-dead LSU in their 2019 hangover, and they'd be on their way to Atlanta for a battle in the spot for the top 4 come Selection Sunday. They locked up LSU on a 3rd down at a pivotal point in a tie ball game. Now all they had to do was get down and kick a game winner. Except...
After the play, unsportsmanlike conduct. Number 11 of the defense, throwing the LSU player's shoe 20 yards down the field.
You're unbelievable.
That's his first unsportsmanlike conduct foul of the game. Automatic first down.
Marco Wilson happened. If you want to find out more about the ripple effect this had, I'll guide you over to Envos's direction. But here's a teaser.
Career long 53, snap and hold are good. Did he get all of that? It's right down the middle, and it is good from 57 yards.
And just like that, there goes your Heisman hopes, Natty hopes, playoff hopes, and sobriety hopes. What came after this was a heartbreaker in the SEC Championship, and then an evisceration in the Sugar Bowl against Oklahoma, where they let up almost 700 yards of offense to Spencer Rattler in the OU run game. The only bright side that came from this was the optimism of a rising star in Emory Jones. It took only 8 months later for that optimism to be gone. Things were trending downwards fast for the Gators, and they needed a response fast. Perhaps too fast. What a hell of a development this was. And they said firing James Franklin was an overreaction. Then again, following the cleat toss, Florida was 2-9 against Power 5 opponents since. And the most frustrating part, as you later found out, was that Marco Wilson didn't even feel bad about it. He's now been given the same medal that Lane Kiffin has in Mississippi, being shadow banned from an entire state. With this move following an overtime loss to Mizzou, Scott Strickland had to make a decision fast, and the week he spent searching was locked in on one individual. Whilst the Gators were internally combusting for everyone to witness, there was an opposite effect going on a bit to the west, as the Louisiana Raging Cajuns were undergoing an unforeseen legendary arc for their program. Following the Mike Hudspeth era, most of whose accomplishments were wiped by the NCAA because of an assistant's recruiting violations, Louisiana put their program's mid-tier destiny on the brainmass of the offensive coordinator of Arizona State, Billy Napier. It was a risk to take since he lacked any sort of major coaching experience, but the wager was worth it to say the least. Once a permanent resident of the New Orleans Bowl, got to be more than that for once. Following a mid-2018, Napier then led the Raging Cajuns to the best 3-year run they ever had, winning at least 10 games each of those next 3 seasons. Yes, they benefited off a horrid Sun Belt schedule, but it's the daggum Sun Belt. Who doesn't? Before Napier, this program never once saw themselves in the AP Poll Top 25. That was changed through his tenure. His offense made the spotlight for elite talent, such as future 49er and Elijah Mitchell, as well as Montrell Johnson and Kyron Lacey. His 2021 season, where he got the Cajuns to an unparalleled 12-1 record, was what finally tipped the scale between Napier and national attention. Major programs are putting in the effort to get him to save their own skin. Virginia Tech and LSU were 2 programs aggressively offering Napier. Actually, I take that back because LSU was hyper-invested in BK for some reason. But they launched prematurely because Napier wasn't done until he said he was done. Okay, he's done. It took only 1 week after Mullen got canned for Napier to take the paycheck for the Different Leagues Conference and join the SEC with the Florida Gators. To say the Gators are jubilated upon being Napier's choice would be an understatement. They viewed it as a major steal for what they thought was a tiger by blood, but Sunbelt Billy envisioned something special within the walls of Gainesville. He described the program as the right place at the right time with the right people and the right leadership. Nothing says that like a burning program past its prime with Scott Strickland as an AD and a fan base categorized by jorts, mullets, and being arrested for thinking your truck is a boat. Yeah, I like your odds, Billy. I mean, you know what you said.
Scared money don't make money, you know?
Hope for your sake what you said was true, because you can make some fat stacks off of this one. Your first game as an SEC head coach is a matchup against a top 10 preseason team fighting for domination of the Pac-12. While this may be a non-con game within the walls of Ben Hill Griffin, it's still a big deal for Gator Nation all the same. Especially since it's the continuation arc of what they consider their next Kyle Trask, Anthony Richardson. He was the only bright spot seemingly of last year's aneurysm who subbed in for an injury-riddled Emory Jones. Now he's the main man of the squad, and he wants to prove that he can lead this team to glory despite a first-year coaching staff. To say he put his life on the line every play would downplay the amount of effort this man put on the field this night. It was like he was playing his last ever game of college football. Kyle Whittingham and 25-year senior Cam Rising had seen a lot of things in their time at Utah, but a quarterback this mobile through the pocket was hard to defend in most circumstances. Rising was additionally not in his A game, and the reasoning was surprisingly not injuries, but rather defensive powerhouse for the Gators and Ventrell Miller. Utah couldn't keep the alligator away all night, and eventually, Richardson did some straight bullshit after this Montreal touchdown.
Anderson goes in motion. What a play by Richardson. A ball fake to keep it alive. And he's got a man alone in the back of the end zone in Jaquavion Fraziers.
Boy, if he looks like that all season, Florida might actually be a major problem in the conference. Utah, however, was able to respond with a touchdown of their own shortly after, so Florida fans ought to hope that you can pull off some more bullshit because they're gonna need it.
Richardson on the keeper. Touchdown!
That was the easy part, ironically enough, because even though Richardson was red hot, Rising was also locked in now, and it would take a defensive stand or Utah throwing from the goal line in order to prevent disappointment.
Four-man rush. End zone. Intercepted! Yes! Amari Birdie with a diving pick!
Operation Seattle it is. If you thought the glazing of popularity of Napier's Florida team was massive during the offseason, you should have seen how fast that raised to the 2007 power following this result. The Gators looked and felt unbeatable. Billy became the first Florida head coach to defeat a ranked opponent in his debut, and Anthony Richardson waltzed into the Heisman conversation the moment this game ended. If they can hold their own against a top 10 team to start the season, just imagine all the great things Richardson and co can do during conference play.
Empty look for Richardson. Oh, that is danger! Oh my! Keidron Smith cuts inside, and he's gonna pick six it in the swamp.
Scared money don't make money, you know?
I never thought I'd see a "we're just joking, we're actually ass" moment in college football, but that's about as close as we can get in a 2-week time span. Keep a mental note of Mark Stoops though through the video. It'll make sense sooner or later. One thing to take from that is that the dud set from that game would set the standard of what the rest of the season was going to look like. Like a firework with a defective fuse, the entire box blew up from the start and then fizzled into silence within the second. Credit the different leagues narrative for this, but Florida's strength of schedule being right outside the top 5 did nothing good to help set their season right. They lost most of their remaining games. Despite the Gators being competitive, their efforts were null more often than not. Anthony Richardson became college football's bipolar disorder. One week he'd throw for almost 500 yards, and then forget how to use his arm the very next week. It was a very odd pattern that won them some games, like against Missouri, Texas A&M, South Carolina, but then again all those schools suck too. To put into perspective, Florida was entering a new era of football, one where they no longer owned Vandy and Kentucky. Very odd indeed. The one other positive they had from the season itself was getting the postseason's pity by being placed in the Las Vegas Bowl to get neutered by one of the greatest Oregon State teams in the modern era. Their lone accomplishment? Not getting shut out. There's a useless stat to flex. If nothing else, Billy's debut is better than Todd Golden on the basketball program, and we all know they ain't winning anything there. And as expected from an elite recruiter like Billy, he went to work. He managed to flip a 5-star talent in Jaden Rashada from Miami. We know he's going to have an amazing legacy at the Florida. At the bare minimum, Billy did go through the portal to find his next quarterback now that Anthony Richardson is off to be a bust in the NFL. And his answer is... You kept the receipt for that one, right? Well, if you were there for the previous season and you thought that was a disappointment, for your sake, the cable went out for this one. It was a little tougher for analysts to convince you Billy had any idea what he was doing after this season's closure. Not to say it didn't have its bright moments due to a certain talent fee.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I didn't do fucking shit!
Josh Heupel losing to this team continues to be one of the reasons I don't consider him an elite coach. As for Florida, even when Napier got one over Tennessee, Napier himself stated that they had a problem with keeping their egos in check. basically confirming that the team listened to the analysts glazing them on television. Every time they listen, they instantly shit themselves. Look what happened against Arkansas. Florida had the game won. All they had to do was not let themselves beat themselves. And you can guess what happened.
Illegal substitution on the offense.
And the kick on the way. Smack. No good! Jefferson, end zone for the win! Touchdown Hogs! Arkansas finds a way in the swamp!
Florida beat Florida. Or Missouri, for example. Leading late, Florida appeared to be ready for bowl eligibility as long as they did not let themselves beat themselves. You can guess what happened.
It'll be a top 10 tumble if he doesn't get it. 4th down. Gotta have it, and he gets it! And Mevis drills it.
Florida beat Florida. They might have kept their egos in check, but that does nothing for Austin Armstrong's defensive incompetence. You know it's a mess when Graham Crackers is the greatest part of the team. Even with almost 3,000 passing yards, his efforts are not enough to get them past the likes of Florida State. I mean, Florida State without Jordan Travis. So now the analysts running coverage for Florida have to work overtime to ensure the Gators get love, because the Gators ain't working in overtime, or any time for that matter. Year 3 of the Billy Napier era, and the pressure was on for him to do something of significance this season and then not immediately die the following week. However, he's coaching an uphill battle. While he did revolutionize the coaching room, he kept Armstrong around for another year. The trade-off, though, is that the offensive mercenary of Mertz was also sticking around. And if he doesn't work out, you have what's going to be your second attempt at developing a 5-star quarterback in the form of DJ Lagway. The first attempt is clearly not going the way you hoped.
I'm going to sue you out of existence.
Welcome to the current year, where you can get sued by one of your own recruits. But which way will Lagway go? Yet to be determined, because this year's Gator squad is facing off against one of the hardest schedules ever seen in modern-day college football. Napier had public faith in his squad shown by the comments about the team, citing he has actual depth on the team for once. All the reason and more to have optimism when hosting Miami in the Swamp, right? If only they could have seen the disintegration their team was going to have against the Canes. Cam Ward made you his son. Even with all the fat loss from the offseason, the weight clearly went to the wrong area, as Miami's D-line disemboweled Mertz for the entire game. Hard to do anything with the talent you have on display when the team itself is lethargic and plays football like a club sport instead of something most of them are being paid to play. The only thing faster than the Florida fans packing for the parking lots were the Canes scoring on offense. Yet somehow, the most embarrassing thing to come out of the night wasn't the loss itself or even the team's performance. It was the fact that Napier went 0-2 for one Saturday. He lost to Miami and then lost to the water bottle in the press conference.
Scared money don't make money.
The rest of the season garnered the same result. Florida had a bunch of almost competent moments before blowing it in horrific fashion by being outcoached time and time again. And even when things lined up their way and they didn't fold on the big stage, the injury bug pushed them off said stage. Florida spent a majority of the season facing off against quarterback injuries that derailed entire halves of football. After they lost to Tennessee, Mertz was taken out for the rest of the season, leaving Lagway to fend for himself against a line built like decorations if Jake Slaughter wasn't playing his best. It got so bad halfway through the year that Scott Strickland had to take yet another blow to his already spiraling PR by dropping a statement about how they were not firing Billy. Rarely do you ever see a major coaching announcement about a coach not getting fired. Funny enough though, this announcement had the opposite of the expected effect. It motivated the Gators enough to play up to their talent, and for once, fate lined up in their direction. After stunning LSU in the Swamp, they'd go on to win the rest of their games, including killing off Ole Miss's playoff hopes, taking out rival Florida State again, and winning the Gasparilla Bowl. So, if nothing else, their earlier win over UCF means that they're now second place in the state. Woo? Fun fact for you though, Desmond Watson this season had more rushing yards than Georgia Southern had passing against Florida this century. Billy managed to buy himself some time with a comeback from last season, but now it's retribution time. It's either that or get canned. Not even the analysts are sure which way to lean, the right way or the lag way. He'll be the starting man for the Gators as they transition into year 4. The fans saw him throw a couple of times in the spring game and immediately concluded that he was helping them win a minimum of all the games they ever play. Confidence in the Napier era was at its highest it's ever been. They got ranked in the preseason by doing absolutely nothing, so there's the reasoning for said hype. But as per the usual, they were up against a brutal schedule. But rather than complain and bitch about it, Napier simply said 3 words: spot the ball. But is this 4th round of Billy Napier knows what he's doing another facade, or is it the real deal for once? It'll take only 2 weeks to find out. Wait a minute, this isn't right. This is supposed to be the real deal in question? It's South Florida, a G6 team entering the swamp at night with nothing but this one dude named Byron Brown. They're cooked worse than a bayou alligator too far in Alexandria. Florida has never collapsed on their home turf, except for all the times they did, but all South Florida did this season was blow out a ranked Boise State. Uh-oh. So much for beating Short Island the week before. Had you thinking you could beat anyone because you scored 55 points in an FCS school where journalism is their greatest athletic program. Now that you're playing against a team who can fight back, the truth reared its ugly head. Your offense is fucking horrible. Thought you enjoyed Checkdown City the last 3 seasons under Billy? Well, now you have no choice here because unless Jaden Ball gets loose, you're going nowhere. The pressure of being the main guy must have gotten to Lagway because Wrongway couldn't hit the broadside of a barn the way he was slinging it tonight. The good news is that Florida's defense had likewise been able to hold back the Bulls' offense, as Byron Brown was struggling to make scoring plays. Better let someone go full Marcus Williams.
Quick, Brown coming near side. Pass is caught. Keyshawn Singleton. He will go untouched to the end zone. Touchdown.
Scared money don't make money.
2 Florida defenders hitting each other on the scoring play. Right there in the Florida Man Hall of Fame next to an FSU defender lined up backwards. Luckily for you, off the one good play of Vernal Brown, Florida was in scoring position with minimal time at all, and quickly followed it up with a rare moment in the season.
Fake it again to Ball. Quick slam. Touchdown, Florida. Trey Wilson with the touchdown.
A Gator touchdown. Now all you have to do is hold them back from points for the rest of the game, and you're spared from the bullshit. Florida regained possession with 3 minutes remaining and held a narrow lead. The straightforward strategy was to run the ball 3 times, force South Florida to burn its final 2 timeouts, and let the clock roll to the 2-minute warning before punting. Instead, Sunbelt Billy Napier had another plan. He called 2 pass plays, both of which fell incomplete, stopping the clock. And by the time Florida had punted, only 26 seconds had elapsed, and the Bulls still had 1 timeout in their pocket. And whilst they were going down the field, Napier held onto both of its timeouts just until 22 seconds remained, leaving Florida with virtually no chance to answer as South Florida took the lead. But it shouldn't be a problem if you don't let them take the lead, just don't repeat history and force a dumbass penalty. Brendan Bett. He followed after Marco Wilson in giving the game to the Bulls. Phenomenal. But let's not get it twisted. He's not the one who ran 2 pass plays in crunch time with a lead. South Florida went down the field, lined straight up the middle, and sealed it with what I would consider to be straight comedy.
Grammatica for the win, and there it is. 18-16 the final score, and the Bulls...
Would you believe me if I told you there were still people claiming Billy Napier knew what he was doing after this moment? I'll leave that up to your jurisdiction whether or not you believe me there. Nonetheless, the rest of the season followed suit, and unlike last season, there was no second win. That level of cataclysmic failure is impossible to come back from. Instead of contending for the SEC title, they contended for the doo-doo title, and if it weren't for Mississippi State, they might have won it. The rest of Florida's season was riddled with horrid offense, bad turnovers, questionable clock management, zebra infractions by the dozen, and nihilistic football that made Gator Nation claim they were now a basketball school. It didn't help that Todd Golden suddenly gained competence and led Florida to a basketball national title. He also appreciated the fans, because I don't remember him calling them basement dwellers. Coming short of low expectations is one thing, but failing to live up to much higher expectations by shitting yourself this bad was the exact thing that made Billy know he was cooked. The lone exception being screwing Texas out of the playoffs for the lulz, but that doesn't save the sinking ship. Despite the offensive woes, he blamed the defense. Despite the winnable games, he lost them. Despite having a layup against a terrible Mississippi State team, he nearly blew the game with blunders like having 12 men on the daggum field. Yeah, I did say nearly, by the way.
There's a snap. Gators bringing some pressure. It's picked off.
You're welcome for talent. They clearly aren't going to credit you for this win, and my reasoning for that assumption is no assumption at all, but rather a truthful inference from a decision 1,000 penalty yards in the making.
Bye-bye.
Get the fuck out of here!
You've got to be a fat mess as a coaching experience if Scott Strickland of all people is letting you take $20 million just to piss off for the rest of the year. Whatever revival they were hoping for with his firing, as said earlier, never came. They lost the rest of their conference games to conclude the worst record of a Florida football team since the squad from 1979, the one that didn't win a single game. It was the worst overall record for a Gator head coach since the 1940s. Less of half of Napier's games were wins. It's worse than Muschamp, worse than McElwain, and yes, absolutely worse than Mullen. Why they let this go on for so long will forever be an anomaly. Besides recruiting, which any 5-year-old with an Xbox controller could pull off in the talent-rich state of Florida, Napier was very much in over his head. It solidified the second coming of a generation of Florida football where nobody even knew they existed. And since they kept Scott Strickland around, they're clearly fine with being there. Speaking of second coming, what if I told you that Florida was committed to a second coming of the same coach they just fired? Good news! They very much are. G6 Summerall is here to save the day! He's totally not going to win a bunch of off-season titles before getting blown out by several SEC teams this season. I for one am glad the cycle is renewed. Crank up that Nickelback while y'all go 5-7 again. As for Sunbelt Billy, he can officially reclaim that title in 2026, because there's another program from that conference that could use him.
Your son has returned!
After losing a whopping majority of their team from last year, the Dukes could use a fresh face in the form of Sunbelt Billy's long-awaited return. Billy going back to his roots for a team trying to keep up their momentum for last year could be mutually beneficial, especially since he's doing the one thing Florida fans have begged for 4 years. He gave up play calling. He's given it to the coordinators. Too little too late, but better late than never. One thing to take from all this is that Billy is quite the interesting individual. He has the intangibles for SEC ball and personality, but it never matched in smarts on the field. As funny as it was to watch Florida lose, now I have no reason to root against him. Any guy that gives a philanthropic gift to boost ALS research at Florida is a good guy in my eyes. And with what he did with the Raging Cajuns, it wouldn't shock a lot of people to see Billy roll again with JMU. Will he ever come back to the Power 4 ball soon? Or at all? It's an unknown. Nonetheless, it's great to see that he's still willing to try. Because now I get to keep the bid up. Billy Napier!
You know, hope and belief are powerful. And somewhere along the way, we figured it out, you know, and we started to realize that we can play with anybody. So, you know, God's been good to me, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity. And look, I mean, I learned a long time ago, they love you when you win, they hate you when you lose, right? So, for me, there's something about the game is conditional.